I'm really pleased to be joined on Not the Andrew Marr Show by James Wilson. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Crispin. Thanks for having me on Not the Andrew Marr Show.
No worries. I'm really surprised you haven't been on the real Andrew Marr Show or more media than this. I mean, this is the first time you've spoken about this quite incredible case that has gone under the radar suspiciously. I don't know why. This is the case of James Wilson and James Mendelsohn, Peter Newborn, whose name struck out, and Edward Cantor, and it was at the High Court in London. Now, the finding of the case was that James won this case, and he was found to have been defamed, his private information misused, and he won £30,000 in damages. This is a statement that James made about the case. The judge has found that Mr. James Mendelsohn gave Dr. Pete Newborn confidential and defamatory information about me. It included a screenshot of a Facebook post that said I was a freak who took pictures of kids outside of school with a clear photo of me. The impression was, as the judge decided, like a wanted poster. When the Facebook post was published originally, there were incidents that made me fear for the safety of me and my family. The police secured its deletion within 24 hours. The judge found that the allegations in the Facebook post were untrue. Then, Mr. Mendelsohn took a screenshot of the Facebook post in the 24 hours it was published, and having kept it for 19 months, gave it to Dr. Newborn in August 2020, knowing Dr. Newborn was making abusive attacks on me on Twitter, X, and so he could use the screenshot as a weapon against me. Dr. Newborn and Mr. Eddie Cantor then published the screenshot on Twitter, X, to as the judge has found, abuse and bully me. When Dr. Newborn realised the screenshot he and Mr. Cantor had published put the safety of me and my family at risk, he took no action. I suspect this was on the basis of advice he got from his solicitor, Mark Lewis of Patron Law. Even when Dr. Newborn deleted the screenshot from his feed, he sent it to other people by private message. He also invented seriously defamatory allegations about me that he sent to other people. The fact that someone's taken got a picture of you and spread it about on Facebook, alleging that you're taking photos of children, is bound to have impact on you and your family. I mean, that must have been pretty terrifying that day.
Yeah, maybe not terrifying, but I certainly didn't want it spreading around the locality that I was a freak who took pictures of children outside schools. But the person who originally published the first Facebook post ended up attacking me outside the school. So the police became involved, and the police basically went round to her house and said, look, you've got to stop this. You've got to delete the Facebook post. And when it was deleted, I genuinely thought I'd never hear anything about it ever again. I thought it'd been deleted. It had all been forgotten about. And then nearly 2 years later, when Newborn started publishing it again, I was just utterly horrified, absolutely horrified. It was awful.
Right, so you thought it was all over with,
yeah,
and then to find out it had come back into play. What was the cause of this image, this Facebook post being brought back into play? What were you arguing about on social media?
So that's a complex question, but generally, I'm not a huge fan of the state of Israel, because even without the current genocide, it's always been a state based on colonialism and apartheid. So I was active on Twitter, and I'm opposed to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, along with lots of other people. And I linked to a piece in the London Review of Books by the former Court of Appeal judge, Sir Stephen Sedley. And Sedley argues that the IHRA definition is confusing and wrong. So I linked to that piece. And the problem is that piece causes real problems for the pro-Israel crowd, because obviously Sedley is a respected commentator, and obviously what he argues is right. So because the pro-Israel people can't argue with Sedley, what they try and do is discredit people who are linking to that piece. And I had various skirmishes on Twitter. I came to the attention of Newborn, who was a director of Labour Against Anti-Semitism. The Labour Against Anti-Semitism people are obviously active on social media. People like Ewan Phillips and his alter ego, David Gordstein and Emma Pickin. And working with others, Newborn found out information about me and then published it. It seems like he'd tried to build up a dossier of compromise or dirt on me. And it included the Facebook post. And Newborn published it, and I got in touch with him. He deleted his publication of the Facebook post, but then it was republished, retweeted by Mr. Cantor. And then he instructed his solicitor, who was Mark Lewis of Patron Law.
So they reused this post to undermine you on the issue of Israel and the IHRA definition. Somebody found that they had a post that was a great attack to you and put this out there and made out you were some sort of, like to say, freak or something like this, which is I don't know. Anyway, look, the thing is,
I don't want to be rude to the defendants, but I think they basically are pro-Israel trolls, and they were just trolling and abusing. Well, as the judge found, they were trolling and abusing me online because they disagree with me about the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. It's all very bizarre.
Right, and so you managed to get the post down, but they were still circulating.
Newborn deleted it, but Cantor republished it on Twitter, and Cantor refused to delete it. He just wouldn't delete it.
Oh, right.
So he published it for a further 8-month period, and it was seen thousands of times.
Now, can you talk a bit about Newborn, because that's a part of this case that's quite that's of relevance to what happens after this, isn't it?
Yeah. So Newborn, I think, infamously published a tweet which showed Jeremy Corbyn reading Michael Rosen's Bear Hunt to some kids, but the image had been photoshopped. So the Protocols of the Elders of Zion had been photoshopped on the cover, and it looked like Corbyn was reading a grossly anti-Semitic book to kids. Now, Rosen objected to this, I think reasonably, given the fact that he's Jewish. And because Newborn linked his Twitter account to his work, it ended up with Newborn being disciplined by his employer, Northumbria University, and they gave him a final warning in May 2021. So Newborn then decided to sue Rosen for defamation, and a claim was issued. Again, Mark Lewis was his solicitor acting. A claim was issued against Rosen by Newborn. So Newborn was being sued by me, and he was suing Michael Rosen. Lewis was his solicitor. In my opinion, Newborn's position in both cases was completely hopeless. And then, tragically, Newborn died by suicide in January 2022. And of course, suicide is extremely complex, and nobody should really try and attribute or identify one cause. But Newborn was involved in 2 hopeless legal cases that were likely to cost him, I don't know, £250,000. So it was a desperate situation.
Right, and that's why his name is, if you see on the verdict, his name's been written through, because he wasn't there.
Yeah,
but it was originally originally included him, but it changed after he died, obviously.
Yeah, and after he died, both me and his widow wanted the claim to be quietly settled, but Mark Lewis and the other defendants just refused. There was no way they wanted to settle. They insisted on keep on going. I think they might have thought in their minds that somehow they were going to achieve vindication for Newborn.
I'll just show a bit more about your attempts to stop litigation. I did not want the litigation to start. The defendants could have settled for 0 damages and 0 costs, an agreement to delete and not to further publish the screenshot. Litigation only started because of defendants, presumably on advice from their solicitors, insisted that publication of the screenshot was in the public interest and refused to give undertakings not to further publish it. They did this despite knowing of the intimidatory incidents. I did not want there to be a trial. What made a trial inevitable was the conduct of the defendants. I suspect some of the defendants' conduct was the result of advice from their solicitors. Again, advice from their solicitors is pointed out here. The defendants' conduct included refusing to comply with the civil procedure rules on pre-action conduct, refusing mediation in favour of litigation, to drive up my costs so I would run out of money, making repeated threats to bankrupt me, explicitly referring to the impact this would have on my employment and children, making false allegations of anti-Semitism to try and get me to abandon my claim, making allegations about my partner and falsely accusing her of conspiring to pervert the cause of justice and breaking professional conduct rules, taking the case to trial, having stated they had no money, I would not recover any costs or damages. They did not care about the outcome. They were blasé about the result. They saw that what they were doing as some sort of revenge. They regard it as payback time. Obviously, that's what you just said. It's a kind of payback time. This would be why they pursued it. Some of the things that you've, this being egged on in effect by the solicitor, but also this attempt to kind of put the costs up so that they bankrupt you. I mean, that's something that is called lawfare, isn't it? Where they kind of make it impossible for you to fight a case. How did you manage to get through that?
So all those things sound really bad, and when you remind me of them, it is really bad. It was just bizarre. So the solicitor Mike Lewis is a litigious man, and he describes himself as a pit bull. So we have to be a bit careful here. I don't know why he describes himself as a pit bull, given most sensible people think pit bulls should be banned. They're not known for their intelligence. And what they are known for is viciously attacking innocent members of the public. So I don't quite know why he describes himself as a pit bull. But that's Mike Lewis. He just completely refused to engage with me. I think he sees himself as some sort of hotshot lawyer, hotshot defamation lawyer. He saw me as some hick from Huddersfield who didn't know what he was doing, who was going to run out of money. And he just called it wrong. I practiced as a solicitor in litigation for many years. I teach law at a university, sort of lived law for the last 30 years. So
wow,
good idea about how trials work, how the law works, how evidence works. But they just refused to negotiate, refused to settle. They insisted, bizarrely, it was in the public interest that they be allowed to call me a freak who takes pictures of kids. It was just madness. And it got to trial. In May 2023, Lewis decided there was a conflict between him and his clients, so he stopped acting for them. And it went to trial, and they lost, as they were always going to lose.
Some of the stuff that you've put in your Twitter feed sort of illustrates Mark Lewis's outlook on this, because we've got this. I think this is a WhatsApp or a text message of some sort, in which it says Mark doesn't think he has the funds to sue and that it would be dismissed swiftly. We've also got this email from Mark Lewis, in which he says he refused. He confirms that you've made an offer to him to make sure that this doesn't go to court. He dismisses it, and then he says in the paragraph towards the end, he says, "I invite you to drop the claim and pay a sum of £4,500 plus £900 VAT towards his costs." Can I just ask you on that one, because I've had threats from lawyers with legal letters like that, asking for costs and damages and stuff, and they are quite intimidating, aren't they? I mean, your background, obviously, you can see through that, but how confident were you that you could take this on after you got these kind of letters? Was it something? Did you have to ask other people to help you for advice?
Yeah, so those are the messages that were disclosed as part of the disclosure process. So I can more or less see what Lewis's advice to his clients was. The without prejudice savers to cost letters will be going through the court. I've got a good knowledge of the law. I can look it up in books. I also had, on a direct access basis, a barrister called Gervais de Weil from 5RB, which is the leading barristers' chambers for media and defamation law. And obviously, I discussed the case with him. We were on the same page in relation to the prospects of success. Neither of us could believe that the conduct of the defendants and or their solicitors, or that it would go to trial. All the way through, we thought, surely this can't continue. Surely these people are not really going to take this to trial. But that's what they did. And I understand if what Mark Lewis says is true in that letter, I understand that whether it is true or not, I don't know. But if what he says is true, that they looked at it, they looked at it as some sort of revenge to try and bankrupt me, which is just.
I mean, this is a description of Mark Lewis in the publication at the Times of Israel. It says Lewis takes a ruthless approach, believing it's necessary to be aggressive against anti-Semites on social media. Someone could be a Nazi, but at least if they are taken to court, they can be a homeless Nazi, he says. I'm quite happy to take their homes off them. If these people would have rational debate, I would do that instead, but they're nutters who have conspiratorial theories, and I will never change their outlook. I would think, well, if people don't like me, at least I've hit them.
Well, what's tragic about that is I'm not an anti-Semite. Second of all, his ruthless approach, it may have been ruthless, but it was stupid because his clients were never going to win. And also, now we're at the end of his case. Both his clients are facing bankruptcy. And Mr. Cantor's facing the loss of the £500,000 house that he, his partner, and the rest of the family live in. So it's just that ruthless pit bull approach has just been, if that is what's happened, it's been completely catastrophic for his clients.
And this is a document that shows that Mark Lewis has to sort of confess that one of his clients does have a house that is theirs and is therefore likely to be repossessed if he can't pay the fees.
So yeah. There seems to be some confusion between Mr. Lewis and Mr. Cantor, where Mr. Lewis did not know at the start of the litigation that Mr. Cantor owned his own home. I can't account for the confusion, but my understanding is that Lewis pushed the case forward on the basis that his client had no assets and therefore he had financial immunity. In real life, as I say, Mr. Cantor owns a house worth £500,000 and is likely going to lose that house. It's just tragic.
What I find remarkable about what you've gone through is that they've attacked you. They called you a freak and all these horrible things, and put you in danger. They haven't allowed any mediation, and then you've won this case, but you're worried about the defendants' welfare because they have put themselves in danger of losing their homes. This is what you write in the final 2 paragraphs of your statement after the verdict. As the judge found, it seemed the defendants were motivated by an intense dislike, if not hatred, of me. For my part, I have no antipathy towards the defendants, despite their conduct and its impact on me and my family. I've never published confidential or defamatory information about defendants. I've never been abusive to them. I never retaliated to the defendants' abuse and bullying. It's ironic that while the defendants are convinced that I am motivated by prejudice against them, it is they who had an obsessive and irrational dislike of me. I find it sad that the defendants, their former legal advisors, and others believe that defending the state of Israel from criticism justified their conduct to me and my family. It is my hope that what has happened to the defendants and their families, and me and my family, never happens to anyone else again. Please do not use the judgment in my case as a reason to attack or abuse others on social media. Mr. Mendelsohn and Mr. Cantor definitely do not deserve to be attacked or abused, and I urge people not to do so. Well, I take my hat off to you. I mean, how you can have that outlook after all that?
Can I explain that? So first of all, Mr. Mendelsohn apologised from the witness box and has apologised since, and Mr. Cantor has apologised since, and those apologies I'm sure are genuine, and I accept them. I think they now realise that things got really out of hand. I think all three of the defendants were, and I think they'd accept this themselves, slightly vulnerable people who were egged on by others, who were caught up with the sort of how would you describe it? Some of the pro-Israel stuff is just irrational and obsessional. The way that they attack people who criticize Israel as anti-Semites. I think it's easy for people to get caught up and sucked in to that kind of behavior. Yes, and what else can I say? You know, one person's died during the course of these proceedings, and it just needs to be now quietly sorted out without anybody engaging in any more attacks of anybody else.
Those two defendants have to pay costs. What kind of amounts are they talking about?
Costs £30,000, damages £30,000, costs around £120,000, maybe a bit more. I haven't had the cost properly assessed yet. So roughly, right, I reckon it's about £150,000, £160,000, maybe a touch more. For a case that could have settled for zero costs and zero damages nearly 4 years ago.
Yeah. And the person who's not paying any of that would be the lawyer, Mark Lewis.
Yeah.
But he was going to, if they'd won the case, would he have been paid out?
Well, I don't know how much of his costs I'd have been able to pay, because I imagine there'd be about £400,000-500,000. But it'd have certainly bankrupted me, and I'd have lost my home, the home that me and my family live in.
So but he wouldn't. Would he get money from the? He'd be paid as well from the victory if he'd beaten you, wouldn't he?
I'd have had to pay his costs. Yes, I'd have to pay his client's costs, which would involve paying him, I don't know, 400,000, £500,000.
So what's your next move that you've done is to, which is incredible, is to actually try and push for Mark Lewis to pay the costs, which is a great thing you're doing as a crowdfunder here. Help make Mark Lewis pay my costs. You've still got a long way to go on that, and I'll share that and let people have the link. Now that what you've gone through is incredible. What would your advice be to people who face the same kind of threats as you do, or are treated the same way on social media?
Well, okay, so my first advice to wingnut supporters of Israel is please stop collecting information on people who are not supporting Israel and stop publishing it online, because as this case shows, it can go catastrophically wrong. If people find themselves in a position where they are accused of defamation or using confidential information, then basically you need good legal advice. And you know, litigation's no fun. People need to try and get out, whether that's through reaching a sensible settlement or going through mediation. People need to try and get out to avoid the cases going to trial, because it's very traumatic for everybody involved. And in relation to the crowdfunder, you know, Mark Lewis is well known for defending pro-Israeli people, Rachel Riley, Tracy Ann Oberman, John Ware. And I think his conduct in this case needs to be put before a judge, so his conduct can be explained. And hopefully the judge will agree with me that Mr. Lewis is liable for my costs. He has to pay me £130,000. That means that his clients don't go bankrupt and don't lose their homes. And it will act as a very strong deterrent to Mr. Lewis in future to repeat what has happened in this case. So if you've got a few spare quid to donate, please please feel free to donate.